Hello, I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Caroline, and we're interior designers. More and more people are asking us about what we do and how we do it.
Which brings us to our new design adventure, the Design Duet. Join us as we discuss the ins and outs and the ups and downs of interior design. Hello, Caroline.
Good morning, Chrissy.
How are you today?
Very well.
Good.
How about you?
Good. I'm good. Today we're doing something different. We're interviewing today, which we haven't done before on any other episode. We thought, because our clients are so important to us, that we thought it would be a great idea for you guys to hear what it's like to work with a client and what the client thinks about us, just to talk about the ups and downs, the ins and outs of the building process from the client's point of view. And today we have lovely Liz, our client, our beautiful long-term client. She's kindly come in to speak to us today and give us thoughts and ideas on how we work and what she thought about it. And thank you. Thank you so much for coming today, Liz.
That's a pleasure.
So, Liz, a couple of questions for you to begin with. Maybe actually talk about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. That might be somewhere to start.
Maybe interesting. So I'm in my mid-50s. I work in professional services. I have a beautiful partner and beautiful family. Have lived locally in the Glen Iris area for 20-odd years. Enjoy the environment that surrounds where we live. This is the second home we've had in the area, the new one that we've just worked with Caroline and Chrissy on. And I'm someone who has always loved and appreciated colour, fabrics, beautiful objects, but with always the thought that I wanted comfort and to build and create a beautiful home that people felt that they could come to and they were always welcome. So home to me has always been incredibly important since I bought my first home when I was 21, and I've loved working ever since. Back then, though, I had to do it all myself. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I could sew and do upholstery and a few other crafty things.
Fabulous.
So what would you say your style was, Liz?
I gave this some thought, and I've always loved things that are timeless. My first degree was in history, so I've always loved vintage and historic elements, and I love being able to combine things. I don't like just one particular style. I think that's a bit pedestrian. I like the art of being able to combine different concepts from different periods, but that creates amazing symmetry. I love elegance. Love things that look beautiful together, taking note of where things are from a height perspective, from a colour perspective. I love clean lines. I've always been drawn to the English botanicals. I just think they're beautiful, more than probably geometric. I'm more into and softer palettes, but classic and elegant and things that stand the test of time. And it's probably the same for me with fashion and clothes. I love that I can buy something and 10 years later still love it and still be wearing it because it's beautifully made, it's classic. And so I've always followed fashion, and I love fashion, but I'm not a slave to fashion. So even though something might be terribly fashionable and everybody wants it, if I don't like it, then I won't look at it. You can't turn my head. And Caroline will try to turn my head, but she can't turn my head. She tries.
Thank you. I think I hear.
Yes, indeed. But I appreciate that you always show me to try and turn my head, but I will be very clear about what I like, and I like things that are timeless. I don't like people going, oh, she bought that in 2022 because that was all the rage then.
So you could say you were a very definite person with your ideas on style, and
you'll never die wondering with me.
No.
Exactly right. Mm. So then, Liz, like you telling us that you have all this in your head, why did you engage an interior designer then? Because you sound like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I've I think because I'm in professional services, and so I have people brief me all the time, and the clearer the brief, the better I'll be able to execute my role. And in the same vein, you're professionals. I can't do what you can do. I can give you a really clear brief of what I like, what I don't like, and what I'm prepared to consider. But you're the experts. You're the ones that put it all together. I've just got a whole list and a tapestry of ideas, but then you're putting everything around it. And so, yes, some of the things that we worked on I could anticipate, but there was other things, and I'd mention it now, with lighting, never would have thought of it. And so I might know 70 or 80% of it, but it's the 20% that you're adding that I would never have thought of that makes it incredibly powerful. And you're looking at the whole storybook. I think I look at things in vignettes. You're putting the whole thing together. You're doing this sort of strategic umbrella, if you like, which is what I always say to my clients. I will say, I didn't think of that. And I go, I know, my job is to do that thinking for you. And that's exactly what you did for us, which I appreciate.
You've said that so well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a budget?
Well, one of the other questions is, have we done this before? And Caroline and I have done this twice before. And in those first times, we had a very strict budget. And when Caroline asked me this time, I went, yeah, it's a bit loose but tight. And that's because we were downsizing. And I think when you get to this age and stage, the budget's hopefully not as tight. And unfortunately for us, it wasn't. But there was still a loose budget, but we could certainly be more liberal than we had been previously in previous times. And I appreciated that. So it meant that we could look at things that were at a greater range than necessarily that we would have done previously. So that gave us more license, which I loved, that we could look at other elements.
Fantastic. And did you have any special requirements on this job? Did you think it was a little bit different than the houses we've done previously?
Most definitely, because the homes we've done previously were old homes. Our previous home was 1920s, so it was 100 years old. So we had to pay attention to the heritage and the tradition of the home, whereas this was a brand new townhouse build. And so therefore everything matched up. That was exciting. Like there weren't walls that were different sizes and fireplaces that were trying to fall down. And so probably the greatest hurdle that I needed to get straight in my mind was, how did we incorporate beautiful pieces that were quite old in some cases into a really new modern home that looked like they were supposed to be there, that worked then with all the modern contemporary furniture that we were buying, and being quite clear about there was some very special pieces, and there was 2 or 3 in particular that I couldn't bear to part with. So the challenge was, okay, well, how do we make this work? And so they don't look like a sore thumb, that they look like they're supposed to be there. And I really appreciated that, because it's not an exact science. And I know there's a lot of science to the art that you do, but some of it's like, not quite sure how this is going to work. And so I think I'd put it on the table to say, well, how are we going to do this? And then there was lots of conversations and tossing around to say, well, it might work here, or actually I don't think it will work there, but what about here? And that's when we engaged our builder as well, who was fabulous, because then he could weigh into the conversation to say, all right, that actually isn't going to work from a logistics perspective or weight bearing, etc., from a building area, but then then we could work from a design perspective as well. So that's sort of where we got to, and working that through, it took time, and the fact that this actually took quite a long time in some ways was frustrating, but in other ways was quite good, because it gave us time to really synthesize ideas and let them settle and agree that that was right, whilst then being quite agile sometimes when we needed to change things because it wasn't going to work either.
So did the process change a lot during the course of the build?
Not especially, I wouldn't have thought. I think we'd made really good plans, and sort of built in contingencies where we needed to.
Yeah.
But a couple of times, yes, we did need to change things, and I think everybody was really collaborative, and one in particular where we'd put the wrong drawers in, and I hadn't paid enough attention to the drawings, and suddenly I did see they built what we asked them to build, except it wasn't what we wanted. Well, especially it wasn't what I wanted.
Well, especially when it was there and you realised it wasn't functional.
No, correct. It was functional, but it didn't look exactly the way I wanted it to look like. And so we had to pay for that variation. And, I think we only did that once or twice. So quite frankly, if you look at how many things can go wrong, we actually got the vast majority of it right. So I'm really grateful for that. So, and in fact, I remember my mother saying to me many, many years ago, interior designers can save you a whole lot of money because they can save you from making a whole lot of mistakes too. So I think it was one thing, I just didn't pay enough attention to a tiny part of the drawing, and I just don't think I conceived what it was actually going to be. And suddenly when I saw it, as you say, and I went, oh, is that what you mean? I went, yeah, no, I don't want that.
So did that help you, those drawings that we gave to you of the butler's pantry, and there was the study as well as the bar?
Yep, absolutely, because that crystallised our thinking from a design perspective and then ratified it from a building perspective, because you can have the best ideas in the world, but if the builder can't build what you want them to build, well, they won't.
So true.
You have to have that in sync. And so having those concept drawings was fabulous. And then the architects actually then drafted them again.
Yes.
But from a conceptual perspective, it was fabulous.
Visualising.
Absolutely. And then to be able to work with the joiners and get the absolute infinite detail was fabulous. So, yeah, the visualisation of those drawings was wonderful.
And did you have any special requirements in this build?
We'd seen what the developer and the builder had built and we loved it. However, we wanted some modifications to that build and
to suit you better.
To suit us and to suit our lifestyle. We love entertaining, and so we wanted the home to really be a slave to that, for us to be able to entertain. So what we were proposing to do, the builders hadn't done before. So we were all working in parallel to ensure that what we wanted to achieve, they could actually physically achieve whilst working with you girls to be able to do that and aesthetically have that. So the special requirements to build the butler's pantry, which incorporated a laundry.
Which looks fabulous, by the way.
It does. We are over the moon, and every person that walks in there is just gobsmacked, quite frankly, as to—
That's what you wanted.
Indeed. It's a showstopper. But to do that, again, wasn't an exact science. And suddenly we've got washing machines and dryers, we've got moving parts, we've got cocktail bars sitting the other side. So my partner was really worried were all the glass shelves going to be rattling literally with the glasses jumping around because of the mechanics on the other side. So it was working through how that would actually evolve. And then the functionality and so it's almost form and function, because in a working house you want both. You don't want a kitchen that looks so beautiful but nobody wants to use it or can use it because it's too precious. And so having beautiful surfaces, finishes, rooms.
They were your special requirements?
Yeah, is one thing, but having it so that it's practical and you can utilise it is another. And it would also go then for I wanted everything to look beautiful, but I wanted it to be super comfortable. I don't understand people who have beautiful sofas, but they're the most uncomfortable chairs in the world. I don't understand that.
No.
I want them to look beautiful, but I want everybody to be super comfortable and sumptuous, and they love the fabrics. And so it has to be beautiful, but it has to be practical as well.
Yes.
So did this design process help you, Liz, step by step, the way that we, with your scope of work, went from one area to the next to the next? Did that help you?
It absolutely did. What I would say is there is so much detail with every room, whether the cushion is 60 by 60 and piped or it's 30 by 40 and it's got a flange. There is so much detail. And to be frank, I'm incredibly detail orientated and I could keep track of most of it. But one of the famous ones was, because it did go over a couple of years, we had completely forgotten we'd ordered a very large rug for our living room.
That's right.
And we were all looking at each other going, really? Did we do that? Yep, pretty much, and you've paid for it. Great.
In full.
At least you'd paid for it.
Indeed, because it was quite expensive. And then when we saw it, we went, oh, we love it. Oh, that's right, we did order it. And so I think the scope of work starts, but what you end up with, there's, I think, a 20% difference, because you might, for example, say, oh, you need 4 cushions on the sofa, but then you get the 4 cushions and go, oh, actually we need 5.
Yeah.
And so that changes. And I think keeping track of everything, because there's so many emails going backwards and forwards, I think if I did it again, I think probably better would be to use either a spreadsheet that you actually updated the spreadsheet.
Yes.
And so it was a dynamic document, which is how we work at work.
Yes.
So because when scope of works are changing, we constantly change a principal document. So I think if I had my time again, we would have created the one document but updated that.
Yes.
And even if you do that on a monthly or a quarterly basis, to agree, well, the scope is X and we're working through that, but we have pushed that up or pulled that down and done that in a more dynamic fashion, I think would be what we would do in future.
Yes.
So that's just an enhancement to the way that we're working, because there was lots of movement and change.
Absolutely. And because it was over such a big period of time,
Indeed.
we didn't expect it to be that.
No.
So each time we decided on something and we send you the invoice, then that was our final. But it actually, in actual fact, wasn't, because we sometimes would wait 6 months, maybe a year for the actual item to be delivered.
You also had COVID in there, which slowed everything down.
Sure did.
What was the most frustrating part of the build?
Undoubtedly the length and the time, because of COVID, because of supply chain, that we had to wait a long time, and we'd ideally wanted to move from our family home to our townhouse, and that didn't happen. So we had to have an interim stay, which was fine in the end, but disruptive and quite frankly expensive as well, because we're moving. But as I said, having it over a length of time meant that we weren't rushed to make decisions.
So true.
And we could really ponder and decide on exactly the right end product and right finishes.
So you could see that as a positive, really.
Indeed. But it's all about expectations too. So when you think something's going to be 18 months and suddenly it's over 2 years, that's frustrating, because life is about setting appropriate and the right expectations and trying to meet those. And that made it frustrating. But we always knew that the build was a quality build.
Yes.
And we always knew everything that we were working from an interiors perspective was quality.
Yeah.
And so I would always wait for quality. I would always advocate for quality. So waiting for fabrics to come from Europe, we'd always do that over
fabulous
taking a short-term option to have something that we weren't in love with.
Yeah.
Well, especially me.
Correct. So going to showrooms and seeing the products and us bringing you samples, and did that help?
That was part of, and undoubtedly one of my favourite parts.
Great.
The fun part.
Oh, the fun part, because as I started with, I love fabrics, I love texture, and I learnt to sew when I was 10 years old, and my grandmother taught me to sew, and so I literally have always relished the craftsmanship and going to the glass blowing factory to see how they were going to make our chandelier, to see the crystals that were created to make our other pendant light, going to the workroom and to help and participate when we were deciding how to cut the fabric for our cushions in our main living room. That to me was an absolute joy, and appreciated you allowing me to be a part of that, because that made it more exciting but more real as well. And I was able to then absolutely visualize how this was coming together as well. And it was a really wonderful and joyful part of the process, and appreciated meeting all these craftsmen and women who we have in our society who put these things together. It was,
the artisans.
yeah, that's exactly right. The artisans.
They're amazing.
And we need to keep them.
We do.
We do. We can't lose them.
We can't. But not all clients work like you, Liz. So not all clients would actually come to a showroom or come to a workroom or come and even want to see how their chandeliers or pieces of art or are done and made. So
Depends on time, of course.
yeah, and it depends on the client too.
yeah.
You know, some people just say, no, that's what I want and I'd like to
And they
purchase that.
trust.
And yeah, well, it's trust, but also because you want to talk about your pieces in your home and you love them so much. And, you know, that's something so special about you, that when you obviously have people come to your home, you want to talk about where it came from and what it looked like before and, you know, who the artisan was, etc.
It's important to you.
Yeah, it's special.
It is. And I always saw this as a partnership as well. And so the trust is high, and I completely trust you, but I wanted to share it. For me, it was a project.
Yes.
And I loved that. And there are other professionals that I might engage with, let's call it James, our accountant, who we love, by the way, but I don't care what
Hi,
he
James.
does. Hi, James. As long as he just does it, I don't really care, and not really interested. This I was completely interested in, and was therefore wanting to invest and loved every part of it. And I can't imagine not looking at all the samples and trying to make decisions.
Yes.
It was very important, and we'd narrow it down. Then I'd take them to my partner, and then we'd decide on the ultimates, so that everybody was buying into the process as well. I just didn't want it to be my decision, and they're quite expensive decisions sometimes too. So you want to get it right, and as I said, not be rushed, and be able to work through it. So it was wonderful. I absolutely loved it.
So what's your favourite room?
I think it is the butler's pantry, which incorporates the laundry, because I've never seen another one like that.
It's special.
It is very, very special. And every time I walk in there, I literally say to myself, wow, this is a great room. And I do walk in there every day to make tea or coffee or put the laundry on. And the way it's been designed, the way the shelving's done, the way you or both of you helped to stylise that room and the rest of the house is absolutely first class, and it's just so aesthetically pleasing. But the but though is it's amazing to cook in and do the laundry in too. It is absolutely fantastic. I love it, and everything's there at my fingertips, and I love cooking, and that's sort of where I bake and things. And so that's my favourite room. Every time I look at the living room, the fabrics that are in there are just
Heaven.
heaven and next level. They are just sublime, and the way that the symmetry has come together in that room is just amazing, with the itinerant rug that we didn't know was going to be there. Thank the Lord it is, because it has brought the whole room together, is just absolutely amazing. And then when I look at the chandelier that we had made, I again am just in awe of what the artisans created. And when I look at it, it's just such an amazing, beautiful piece in our home. And again, it's unique, and I think that's what I look for. I don't want ours to be the same as everybody else's. I want our home to be representative and indicative of our entire family and the history of our family, not just this minute at this time, it tells a story, and there are pieces there that we've had for many years that I inherited from grandparents, and that's what I wanted to marry together. And so I feel that we've been able to do that incredibly well.
It's fantastic. We do this little thing called tidbits, Liz.
Right.
Did you know that the target customer for interior designers are females with an interest in home decoration? Do you agree with this?
Undoubtedly.
Do you think it's changing?
It probably goes to my comment before about me not paying attention to the accountant. I think there's a sense of passion and spending time with things that you actually like doing. It's like people who like gardening. I don't especially like gardening, but I love looking at gardens. And so I think men are taking more of an interest because they're becoming more family orientated, and men are leaning in, especially younger men, leaning into helping raise children more than maybe their fathers did. And so they're probably more interested in what the function of a home is as well. I
definitely agree there.
And so they think, well, we're about to have 3 children. We can't have that, or we can't do that. We need more form and function. So, yes, I think they're paying more attention to it because they're more interested in what's happening within the family, and they're spreading their load between work and family, just like women carving out time for their careers and their family. And so they want their homes to be beautiful, but they have to be functional as well.
That's right. Do you think your partner enjoyed this process with using an interior designer and just even the whole build process? Was he involved?
Actively involved, and he did, because we achieved exactly what we wanted. And every time we're there, and we've only been there for a couple of months, we pinch ourselves saying, wow, they've built us exactly what we want. And now how exciting is this? We get to live there, and we're like the big people in the beautiful home. So yes, he did. And we only had one famous argument about some fabric, which I'd chosen with you two.
You haven't told me about this one.
Oh, really? Which he absolutely did not like. And I was thinking, goodness, may I have superior taste? Why would you not possibly like this fabric? But he just didn't. And I was like, goodness me. And the next morning, coincidentally, we were walking down High Street, Armidale, and we saw fabric unrolled in the front window of the store, the wholesaler, and both of us just loved it straight away. And you two went and got the fabric the next day for us.
Absolutely.
And that's the fabric we now have on our chairs in our living room. And so it does make me giggle because that fabric is far superior to the one that the 3 of us chose, which he and I essentially chose. But he saw it because he's got better eyesight than I have, because he saw it across the road. And we went across and then bought it or asked you to source it for us. And so that was the only area that we sort of disagreed. And he was absolutely right, as it turned out, which you'll be pleased to hear I've just acknowledged. No, I think it's fair to say that we were clear from the outset what we wanted to achieve, and then we were able to work with the detail sitting underneath.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we were able to achieve the end result and do that in a really collaborative way.
Absolutely. Well, on behalf of Chrissy and I, Liz, thank you so much for being on our first interviewed person
Number 1
podcast. And I'm going to miss you.
Oh, it's not over.
Well, I hope not, because you'll have to do another because we can't just let this one go. You've been an amazing person to work with and for, and you're very special, and we've just loved every step of the way, and it's been a pleasure for us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, even though we're breaking up, I'd just like to say thank you both sincerely for all of the time, effort, but love that you've put into helping us create our beautiful home, and we'll be forever grateful, because we literally couldn't have done it without you. And we'll be eternally grateful. So thank you.
Thanks, Liz. That's beautiful.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to get in touch, email us on thedesignduet@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram page, The Design Duet.